Well, hi, Annie. I am so excited to have you on the show today.
Yes, thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, I reached out to you because I was seeing some stuff on Instagram about your life as a traveling therapist. And so,
Yeah.
can you give a short little intro about who you are and just kind of what you're up to in business and life?
Yes. Okay, so I am originally from Washington State, but I have a private practice and I'm a licensed psychologist. But over the last 2.5 years, I took my private practice abroad. So I've been living in Morocco, Thailand, and Bali while kind of running my US-based private practice. And as I've done that, I was getting a lot of questions from other therapists that I knew. And so I was like, oh, like I feel like not a lot of people know about this. I also like this is like a new part of my life. Like, why not start a second business? So I started Digital Nomad Therapist, which helps other therapists do what I did, which is transition or start their private practice that allows them to see US based clients while they are in, able to travel the world or digital nomading. And so, yeah, it's been so fun. I've really been enjoying it. Being able to not only like meet people and build a community, but also, you know, get to help other people do this too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's in theory like one of the whole points that people start their private practice is they want more choice, they want more freedom, they
Yeah.
want to do the things they want to do in life. And yet, I think all of us at some point have experienced that struggle of like, but I feel like I have to do it in my apartment, in my home, like I have to do it from this one place because anything else on top of that is just too complicated. So like can't take
Yeah.
vacations, I can't or don't want to see clients while I'm traveling for vacation. But there's this gap of like, well, what if you were kind of always on vacation in
Yes.
terms of traveling, seeing a place you really like, and then like seeing a client here or there? So, what made you
Yes.
decide I want to travel more and basically take my business abroad?
Yeah, so I mean, I didn't really travel abroad until I was in grad school, and I think my first trip was to Mexico, and then I went to Italy, and I was just like, "Oh my God, this is incredible." Like like traveling abroad is so fun. And I think I just like became quite obsessed with it. I'd like watch videos and like travel YouTubers. Like
Mhm.
I would like dream of the next trip and so I just like quickly fell in love with it, but then I was also in grad school, and so but then one day I was watching this video about this digital nomad who is this like lawyer who kind of opened up her own kind of business and living from Mexico City, and so she introduced this idea of it being a digital nomad, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's exactly like that sounds amazing." But then I was in my internship for my doctorate at the time, and I was like, I really wanted to go into private practice, and I was like, but there's no way I can make this work. Like, I want to be a good therapist, and I have to have a private practice that, I go into the office 5 days a week or whatever. So I was just like immediately like, there's no way I can make this work. And I was also the relationship I was in at the time. He was in like government contracting, so there was no way he'd be able to travel abroad. And so I was just like, for many reasons, I was like, oh, this can't work. But then I just like kept dreaming about traveling and I kept loving it. And I then found actually Kim Tolson's the traveling therapist. Her Facebook group, and I was like, oh, so as a therapist, I could make this work. But still, like, I think I was in my head, like, I'm like, there's no way, and I'm in this relationship, like, but then as soon as, like, February of 2022, or March of 2022, that was the first month I started my own private practice, but also was the same month that the partner of the time broke up with me. And so I was like, well, like while I was like deep in grief, I just had this like moment where I was like, oh my God, I could travel abroad. I could take my private practice abroad. I don't have any limitations. And of course, I like still was scared about that and was like, ugh. So it took me like I think a year and a half. because I had started my private practice in person. So I was like, oh, can I just like pivot and like switch to virtual? But I just didn't feel like I was like too secure enough to do that. So I waited and I eventually switched my private practice to virtual. I moved all my belongings from Virginia to Washington State into my parents' house. And like 3 weeks after that trip, I had gone, or after that move, I had gone on a like, it was just supposed to be like a 2 week vacation. Like I didn't feel mentally ready to go abroad yet, but I had had this vacation planned. And I was like, this is so incredible. I don't want to leave Morocco. So I extended my trip for 1 month and then met my husband like 2 days later. And so then never left.
Amazing.
So it's just been like, it was like something that was like there in the back of my mind and something I really wanted to do, but like for so many reasons I was like I can't do this. But then finally was just like okay, like I can't keep being an in-person therapist in Virginia because that's what other people want me to do. Like this isn't right for me. And so I had to kind of, work through that and work through all the mindset stuff, which I'm sure you're intimately aware of helping other therapists
Mhm.
work through.
Yes.
It's like a barrier in anything. But anyways, it's been incredible and I haven't looked back. And now I've like given birth to my daughter in Thailand and like lived like in these amazing places and also have run, this like a practice and one that I assumed I wouldn't be able to, but I have. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head in the sense of we often build the practice that we think our clients want, right? It's like, well, they want in
Yes.
person and they want these times and these days and they want it like this.
Yes.
But again, like private practice, ultimately, most of us start it, of course, because we want to help clients, but like we want to do it on our terms. But there's one of
Yes.
those barriers of like, but I love travel. And what do I do if I have an in person office and maybe my clients are actively saying they don't want virtual therapy, they only want in person? So, how do you navigate those conversations? How do you get essentially not even just the financial stability, but like the emotional courage to be like, well, I'm
Yes.
going to do it anyway, of like, because this
Yes.
is something I want. And what I have seen as I've moved, I've gone in between like I started primarily virtually, then I started offering some in person. I kept changing offices because I was subletting from lots of different people and there was just a lot of
Uh-huh.
chaos with that. And then eventually I was like, I'm just going back to all virtual. But then I started doing in person intensives. Like there's been so many changes I've made in my
Layla.
practice that it can be hard to keep track of all that. But for me, what has been a non-negotiable is like I still want to have the things I want to have in my life. And travel is also
Yes.
a huge value and passion of mine. And there's been times where I've traveled quite a bit. I think I went on 5 or 6 international trips in 2025 alone.
Oh my gosh, I
And
love it.
yes, exactly. It was so fun. It got exhausting. So we'll see about
Yeah, I can
2026.
imagine that.
Um, but even then, like what was nice, you and I were just talking before we started recording of like, if you're anywhere basically east of the East Coast, you're kind of looking at like an 8 to 10 hour time difference. And so there were times actually it worked pretty well of like, I went abroad
Wow.
for a business retreat and you did the sessions in the morning. And then I saw 1 or 2 clients in my afternoon because it was kind of like their evening, or I forgot exactly how that time works, their morning on the West Coast. And I got to be
Yeah.
doing a session in the afternoon. It's like, it really is a win-win to get a
Oh
little bit of
yeah.
work travel done. And that's a tax write-off, but then also like
Yes.
still maintaining some continuity of care for your clients.
Uh-huh.
So there's just so many ways
Yeah.
that travel can be a part of a private practice if you can make it work logistically.
Yes. And I think a lot of people, in general, I think a lot of people have limiting beliefs, but especially since I've started digital nomad therapist, it's like so many people like are have this idea that it needs to look one way when it could be so flexible. Like you don't have to sell all your belongings and go travel like full time. Like you're saying, like you could extend your trip. So instead of maybe taking 2 weeks, you could take a month and seeing your clients, during that time could help you financially, be able to take a longer trip. Like it doesn't have to be this like, or there was even a therapist who I was talking to who really wants to do this like culinary experience or culinary school for 3 months in Italy, but she was like, "How can I still see clients?" And I'm like, "Well, could you see them maybe on Saturday and Sunday, like have a smaller caseload, but you still make money?" And she's like, "I didn't even think about that." And I'm like, so it's like I feel like we have like I feel like as therapists, it's so easy to like think that our whole identity is being a therapist and like our life has to be about all about therapy and all about our clients, but it doesn't have to be. Like, we should be able to explore and express different parts of ourselves, like going and taking a culinary, like,
Yeah,
institute, whatever, in Italy. I'm like, hello, why wouldn't you
sounds
do
great.
that?
Yeah.
I know, but it's like, I feel like so many of us are limiting ourselves from these like incredible experiences because we're like, oh, we need to have 9 to 5 hours, when it's like, no, like there's so much, yeah, like private practice gives us so much freedom. Why not take advantage of it?
Mhm. Yeah. I think it's the pro and the con that I'm always reflecting on and talking with other therapists about is like now that we are our own boss, like it is also our job to make sure we're taken care of from the
Yes,
business perspective. And so back when I
yes.
worked at an agency, like as much as I hated, oh, I have to ask for my PTO this much time in advance and I have to wait before I actually book anything for it to be approved, like at least there
Oh,
was a formal process. And I was like, you bet your
yeah.
ass that I'm taking my PTO. Like I'm not
Yeah.
letting that go. But in your practice, when you're your own boss, it can be so easy to not give yourself the stuff that you know you need, like the time off, because we equate that if I don't see clients, I'm losing out on money thing. But again,
Yes.
you can see your clients while you travel. So it doesn't have to be
Yes.
that you're sacrificing one for the other.
Yes. I think a lot of people think I'm rich, but I'm like, no, literally just work so I can travel. And it's like it makes it so much easier to a lot of people I think when they're thinking about going on vacation, like you're spending so much money because you're staying in hotels, you're eating out all the time, but like when you're a traveling therapist, like your your accommodations are so much cheaper because you're staying for like, maybe longer term, like like a month at a time is cheaper than staying for 2 weeks sometimes. And it's like I'm also making money, so it's not like I'm like just but anyway, so it like makes traveling so manageable and so affordable that I would not be able to do this if I wasn't traveling
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
working at the same time.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Can you talk a little bit about like how you think about budget of, okay, what are my home expenses? Because, even if you're at parents' place or some other family's place or you have your own place, like how do you manage thinking about home expenses versus travel expenses? And do you set aside extra money for it or like it truly does just all work and even out?
So I fly by the seat of my pants.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not like a super like financially sound like person per se. Like I don't have a budget, but generally, so I have made it to where I have the least amount of like American expenses, like essentially stationary expenses. Like before, like I had a car payment, I had insurance, I had rent here. And so I sold my car, those different types of things to like make it work longer term. Obviously, if you're not wanting to make it longer term, you have to, you can't get rid of everything. But essentially how I think about it is that I reduced as much cost as I could, reoccurring costs or kind of those types of things, so that all my expenses are essentially like rent. And in most countries that I travel to, rent is so much cheaper than the United States. Like staying in like 10 minutes from this beautiful beach in Phuket, Thailand for less than $900, where I like walk to the beach every day. I'm like, in America, that'd be like
Uh-huh.
$4,000.
Yep.
But, and then, the other expenses I have are like food and healthcare. Like, you don't have to spend hundreds of dollars every month for a premium. Like I didn't have like I gave birth without health insurance and it was less than $6,000, which is like in America, that's how much some people pay for health insurance
Yeah.
for a baseline, not even their
Yep.
deductible.
Yep.
So, so I think like there are expenses, but you can make so like the expenses that I have in other countries are just so much less than in America. And with my business income, like I usually don't have to have like I don't have to have a budget because what my business or like what my take home is just so comfortable when it comes to like living, abroad. And so I don't feel like I have the best answer for you. But I just think like like a lot of people are kind of afraid of like, oh well, what does that mean, like how does money work? But one, when you're virtual, as you probably know, like you just have so much less overhead
Yeah.
for your business. But then, when you're living abroad, it's kind of you're doubling up on that because you have your overhead for living is so much cheaper too, just because America, for some reason, is so expensive. And obviously, you could travel to countries that are also expensive. Like if you go to Switzerland, like you're probably going to be spending a lot of money because Switzerland's expensive. But you can also go to, countries that are so affordable and much better quality of life.
Yeah. And I think like that in and of itself is a great answer because you don't have to have this well thought out and laid out and planned for budget. Like you can actually fly by the seat of your pants and make it
Yeah.
work, and it's not actually stressful. If anything, like
Yeah,
it just it's easier than most people think. And I think again that's one of those
absolutely.
blocks people have, is like, if I'm going to do this I have to plan and budget and do all these things, and it's like, no, not really, because actually it might just be quite affordable unless you go to Switzerland. That's
Yeah.
very different.
Yes. Yeah, like like I think I've talked to therapists where they're like, I can't do it because I don't have like a big enough buffer yet. I don't have a big enough savings account. And I'm like, you don't need one. Like I like, obviously have one because it's good to have an emergency fund,
Right.
good financial advice. But like I had like an emergency fund that I never even used until I went on maternity leave. Like, and that had nothing to do with traveling,
Yeah.
so I think it's just like, I think people, because going abroad is so unknown, it like freaks us out. And so I think it's easy for us to imagine the worst case scenario. But living abroad is like living in America. The challenges that you face, like, but it's less expensive. But it's like, things tend to work out when you're in America. And, so I think it's just, yeah, there's so many misconceptions. And I get it because moving abroad, like, especially with American propaganda that we have about like foreign countries of being so much worse off than America, like we think that it's a disaster zone, but like in reality, it's not. Like it's a lot less scary than our anxiety convinces us that it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And part of what I like of what you're saying too is, again, there's no one way to make this work. Even I think when I hear digital nomad, I think of the people who do this full time. Like they just straight up sell all their possessions and move somewhere permanently. I just had one friend and her
Hmm.
family, she moved to Spain. They're like, yep, we
Yeah.
got our visas. We're like all documented, like we're great. But you don't also have to go to that extreme to do it.
Hmm.
And I think given like current political climate stuff, like there are a lot of people who want to get out of the US right now. And you can do that
Hmm.
without having to wait for all of the extremes of the budgeting and the selling stuff. It can just be, can I go somewhere for 2 weeks and make sure that I'm taking my business with me? And can I extend for a month if
Yeah.
I love it there? So it
Yeah.
can work.
Yeah, it's really can be flexible. And sometimes if you have to get a bit creative, but there's usually some workaround that you can find for your life. Like I think a lot of people just don't even try. Um, but if it's really something you want to do, there's a way around. Like there's a way to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, an interesting question that I've been thinking about with this is, I know even like US based therapists who are fully virtual, or they're virtual and they're licensed maybe in like three or all the states. I mean, I don't know if you're with SciPact, but like we can see people in like 40 some states. Like, how do you go about marketing yourself when you are someone who's completely virtual? And, the more that you're traveling around, maybe you're not building up um, like local networks or something like that. So, like, how do you keep your
Yeah.
practice full? What do you do?
Yeah, this is a great question. Mm, Basically, what I do is that I have an amazing website. I have great copy on my website, and I really invest in SEO. I've never done in-person networking ever in my 5 years of having a private practice. Just because that's like, I don't know. I just had some vendetta against in-person networking. Like I felt like I couldn't control it enough. I'm like, I can control my website, but I can't control these networking. I don't know. But
100%.
um yeah, so from the like start of my practice, I invested in SEO. So like 90% of my caseload or like 90% of my referrals come from SEO, and I would say the other 10% is from like, I don't know, random sources like Psychology Today or something. But so that is how I have done it, and I have been quite successful on it. And so that, and I did that before I went abroad. So, but it really served me abroad because, I would get referrals in my sleep compared to having to like try and network with therapists in a different time zone. So
Mm.
it just is a little bit more restricting to do more of the, and like you can totally make it work. I'm sure people can get referrals from connecting to other therapists and they're kind of where they're licensed, but you don't have to. And so that is, and it's been quite simple of like just kind of focusing on that. And then I think also too the other thing is like because living expenses and because life is just a lot more manageable, you don't have to see as many clients. Like, obviously you can charge a premium rate, but even then, you don't have to see, and it actually serves you to not see 30, 25, 30 clients a week. And so you need less people. Like you don't need, 10 referrals a month. And so I think even having less living expenses helps you. There's just a lot more breathing room, I guess. Uh, so there's not like I have a friend who's in the DC. She owns a practice in DC, and she has to maintain a certain level of clients. She has to get a certain level of like or amount of referrals because her overhead is just so expensive. And so, I think like my referral like it works for me, but just thinking like that's something I think people don't think a lot about is like how many referrals you need for a virtual practice compared to like in person. But um, the other point that I think is really important is I think there are a lot of therapists who want to do this and then they're like, oh, I just need to get like licensed in all these different states. But I went through this where I was licensed in Virginia, but then when I moved to Washington, I was like, oh, I'll get licensed in Washington. But honestly, I think trying to market to a ton of different states does not work. Like, focus on one place and like invest your time and energy into that one place, and you will be much better off than trying to like spread it out. Like, not only SEO wise, but just I think it just it becomes a lot of trying to learn how to market to different areas. Because every area is different. Like in Washington, I was like, I just feel like Washington, there's something different about it here. I'm like, I haven't figured out how to network here or like get in the SEO here. But anyways, I think like, I just find my recommendation is always to just focus on one area. Like you don't need, well, and also, side note, SciPact, I can't use SciPact because SciPact has restrictions on your physical location as the provider. So
Mm.
I can't even use SciPact anyways. But I don't need it because I get enough SEO from Arlington, Virginia. So yes, yeah, that's yeah, it's kind of random, like all over the place, but
Oh, I mean, it's super helpful because I think those are all the common things that it sounds like we both hear from therapists and maybe have experienced ourselves of like, I also very introverted. I don't love the in-person networking. Like hopping on podcasts is like fun with people, but like we're doing
hmm
it to chat. We're not doing it to like, so you got any clients you can send me? So
yeah,
like I never
exactly.
loved that aspect of networking. So I didn't do it. So I took control of my
uh
website. I took control of my SEO, and that is how I get clients from Oregon and Washington at this point.
hmm
But I hear so many people who really, yeah, do that exact thing of like, I have to get licensed in so many states, or I have to go get the Florida telehealth registration. Like, I have to reach all these states. And it's like, no, like in literally any
No.
state, there are millions of people, and you only need, depending on your fee and your financial needs, like 10 to 20, maybe.
Yeah.
And so, like, just to hone in on what is the marketing strategy and location that you really need to, and having good copy. And then I think a lot of it is confidence too, in how we talk about ourselves as therapists and how we can help. Like, if you've got those nailed down, like, you don't need to get all the licenses and registrations to work with all the people. Like,
Yeah.
it's convenient. I am in SciPact. I opted into it, I think, last fall. It's convenient if my clients travel. I'm like, oh, I'm going here for work, or I'm going on vacation, or going home from a school break, and I'd still like to see you. That's convenient, but I'm not trying to market to 43 states because, again, I just
Yeah,
don't
that's
need to.
too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also think I found like trying to manage time zones is a lot.
Yes.
And so like I couldn't imagine having clients in 42 different states and like trying to like have the like mental labor of keeping that in track. Like it's too
Hmm.
much. Like one
Yes.
place is just so much easier for so many reasons.
Yes.
But I think,
Yes.
yeah, like the people like get in this scarcity mindset of like, oh, I have to like get all these things or like get all these states. But it's like, no,
Yeah.
you just have to like, get really good at one one city.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so, speaking of managing the time zone differences and that being, just an additional layer of something to think about,
Hmm.
what have been some of the struggles that you experience as you're traveling while working? Because I imagine like
Yes.
Wi Fi or like
Oh,
privacy, maybe
yeah.
at times. Like, what are some things that come up that you encourage people to think about?
Yeah, that is a good one. I mean, I do think time zones is one. I mean, that is such a huge one because our work is a little bit restrictive because we can't like, see clients at 1 a.m. their time. Like that wouldn't be like reasonable to ask of
Sure.
people. Like, my only availability is 1 a.m. your time. But um so I think that is a big one people have to think through because like for me when I was in Morocco, I was the first time I was like a little bit since I did it impulsively, I was like afraid of changing my clients like session times. So I ended up just keeping them the same, which was like evening time in DC, which meant it was like nighttime in Morocco. So I was seeing people to like 1 a.m. and I like ultimately like I felt like it was worked for me because like I was in this new place. Like I got to spend the whole day like relaxing, surfing, like exploring a new beach, like living my best life. And then I would work at night and then go to bed. Which it's like after I'm done seeing clients, like I don't really have energy anyways. Like I just want to chill. So like it really worked for me, but I think when it comes to time zones, you have to think about like your energy level and like what works for you. So it's like if you are not an evening person, maybe you really have to think about your schedule and your client schedule. Like if you see kids, you probably, have a little bit harder of a time. So anyway, so I think that is just like something like it like becomes like a little bit of like Tetris of like figuring out like yourself and also, your clients. Like when I was in Thailand, the first time I like woke up at like 3:40 a.m. to start seeing people at like 4 a.m. But it was also I was only in Thailand for like, 2 or 3 months, so I knew it wasn't long term. So I think that's just something people have to think through. But I think the thing that I like people to know is that it is like I feel like it's like you're giving and taking in either situation. Like when I was in DC or even now I've been in here in Washington State for a couple of months, like I work during the day hours. And so once I get done with work, like the sun is set and it's dark and I'm like this is so fucking depressing. Like, this is horrible. you know, and so I think like but when it's like not, it's a little bit like of a struggle or like, it can be hard to like work in the night, but it was like I felt like my work-life balance was so much better when I was like able to actually take care of myself during the day rather than, waiting until after work. So it's like it felt like my life was more of a priority. So I like to say that it's a struggle to stay up late sometimes or get up early, but there is a plus side too, rather than kind of working traditional 9 to 5 hours. Um, Wi-Fi is definitely another one that I think before I became a nomad, I was so anxious about Wi-Fi because the only real Wi-Fi I had experienced before I became a nomad was like hotel Wi-Fi or like Airbnb Wi-Fi. And what I didn't realize is that hotel Wi-Fi and Airbnb Wi-Fi is trash.
Yeah.
Like hotel Wi-Fi is a particular horrible connection that like isn't typical. Like I just didn't even know that. I was just like, oh my God, the Wi-Fi is so bad here. Because I wasn't getting like data plans or anything like, when I was traveling. So my only understanding of their Wi-Fi was like the hotel. But anyways, like Airbnbs are usually typically better, but you have to like ask them beforehand. But what my experience of Wi-Fi in other countries and cell phone service in other countries is that America is like has horrible internet connection. Like it's so bad. Even like Morocco and Thailand just had like well, Morocco not as much. Their cell phone service was a lot better than here. But like Thailand's Wi-Fi is significantly better than the United States. And so I think that was something that I learned that I was like pleasantly surprised is that Wi-Fi is so much better in other countries and it's not something you typically have to worry about. The only thing you really have to worry about is like the same thing as it would be in America is, everybody has a different Wi-Fi plan, so you'd need to make sure that the Wi-Fi plan in your Airbnb is going to be solid enough. But I honestly would just use like as a backup, I'd use my phone as a hotspot and using the cell phone service like was like even better than the Wi-Fi. So that's something I get people like are worried about, but it's not something you typically have to worry about. Like you have to be prepared and because you're using other people's equipment, but that would be true of anyone moving around, less so about like other countries and stuff. But yeah, what are the other things? Like I think the other thing some people are really worried about is like getting clients, but I think we already talked about that. And then medical care, like, I think a lot of people are scared about medical care, but once again, like American propaganda. Medical care in other countries is so much better than America. Like I came back because my husband, like we were kind of, he came over on a K-1 visa, and so we got married here, and then we've been here until he got his green card. And I've been trying to get a doctor's appointment this whole time, but it's like impossible. And I'm like, the medical system is disgusting here. Like in Thailand, you literally show up to this like world-class hospital and they get you into the doctor for like $50. And you get these like, like great service and great care. like,
Mhm.
like you just show up. That's and even in Morocco, like I feel like I got like good care there as well anytime I needed to go to the doctor. Um, so I just think my biggest thing is like I think we have so many fantasies about living abroad and like it being worse in America, but it's just like not. I think yeah, the only time I really struggled as a nomad was when I was pregnant, but I think I was really homesick, but I think that was because I was like because of I was pregnant, not because I was like necessarily living abroad. So, yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. I always say like for right now, my biggest barrier to like if I do international trips, I'm there maybe no more than like 2 weeks because I have fur babies at home and I'm like, I would just miss them too
Yes.
much. But
Yes.
yeah,
That
I
is
don't think that's
hard.
yes. But yeah, if I didn't have fur babies, if I didn't have a partner who could also travel while I'm traveling, like I would be traveling much more frequently and staying places much longer. But yeah,
Yeah.
again, exactly like you said, is even 2 weeks of travel is still therapists being able to like put their life first, right? If they want to go to 2 weeks for Thailand, if they want to go wherever they can, right? So just
Yeah.
making sure that
Hmm.
you book your flights and look into your Airbnbs or wherever you stay, but you can make it work. It doesn't have to be so complicated. And it sounds like there's
Yeah.
not actually as many barriers as people
Yes.
think there are.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, well, tell us because you support therapists in this way. So, are there ways people can connect with you, follow you more for information about how you do it and ways that they can get started too?
Yes. So I'm over on Instagram at the just digital nomad therapist, where I provide a lot of information. But I also have a YouTube, which is also digital nomad therapist, where I also share a lot of information. I am currently launching the Nomad Practice Accelerator, which is a 8-week course helping therapists, transition or start their private practice so that it can be location independent and you can travel anywhere while also seeing your U.S. clients. And so that is launching in April. And I don't know when you're posting this, but if they're interested, they can reach out about that. But I also will be running it in the future. So if people are interested, that's something I'm offering. But other than that, like, saying hi on social media, definitely say hi. My DMs are always open and I love chatting with people. It's like a part of the reason I started the digital nomad therapist was wanting a community because like traveling, it can be a little bit not only isolating because you're in another culture, but even professionally. Like, I was like, I miss other therapists. So it's been like so fun to like meet people and like talk with them. So, yeah, like definitely reach out over there, but that's kind of where people can find me if they're interested in learning more.
Yeah. Amazing. I know so many people who are interested in this. So I will definitely send some people your way, and I hope that your
Yes.
new program goes well.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited about it. It's like such a fun thing of like doing something new. Like I'm like, I know I'm a good therapist, but like venturing into like coaching is like it's really fun to do it something new, but it's definitely like I'm like it's such a different way of being.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah, I've been really enjoying it.
Awesome. Well, I just want to thank you again for coming on today and sharing all your stories and insights. And I will go ahead and link any of the information that you have in the show notes if people want to check that out there, and make sure that they go ahead and give you a follow. So thanks again for your time today,
Yes.
Annie. I'm sure we will be in touch
Yeah.
soon.
Yes, thank you so much.